So, I want to tell a ghost story. It's been a while, and being October and my birthday being Halloween, I can't resist. So, for those of you who like the videos that are more squarely on spiritual enlightenment, you may have to wait for the next one to come out because here I just feel like going back to childhood a little bit. So, this ghost story ends at age 17 and begins in childhood. For some of you who are already familiar with me and some of my life, you know that that was a very regular part of the context for most of my childhood. Sometimes I believed fully, sometimes I half believed. In fact, much of the time as I got older, I really rather wanted a lot of that stuff to be just a figment of my imagination, because that would actually be make for a much more comfortable bedroom for me to sleep in. So, anyways, without further ado, let's get to the story. So, there was two actually, particular spirits that I saw only every once in a while. In fact, I think we had a bit of a detente with each other. I could say I could feel you. I know you feel decent to me. But maybe let's timeshare this room and try not to scare each other, because I wasn't sure if I scared them too. So that's how it went. One of them was what I thought of as the stuffy Edwardian lady. That's what I called her, because I don't know what time period she was from, probably the Edwardian, but I called her that because she had a rather high collar. And also her face, the stuffy, like, there you go. That was the face she always had on, which was very disconcerting when you're a 7-year-old boy, just trying to go to sleep or just walking in your room and hey. The other one seemed like I think a Mexican fellow, and I thought he was from maybe the 1950s or the 1970s, mainly based on the I found rather garish shades of sort of mustard yellow, green, and brown that were in his sweater vest that he always seemed to have on. Now, he had a nicer disposition about him, a kind of a friendlier, even kind of, there you go, friendlier face. So he wasn't, he was not as scary as if when I accidentally ran into that lady. Okay, so the third part of the story enters in at about age 8. And at that point, I had just maybe a couple months previous had an encounter with a very, very sort of dark entity. I mean, dark as in literally its form was basically like pitch black. And when this particular entity came into my room, at first I was sort of like paralyzed, then I broke out of it. And it was the darndest thing, because it was the first time I'd ever experienced like all of my body turning to fear and having the sense that as if my life force was being sort of pulled out of me towards this entity. And when that happened, I thankfully, this sort of voice from the deepest part of my heart just said, just turn into unconditional love and open. And I did. I don't know, I didn't do it. It just kind of happened. And as that sort of happened, it was like I could even see this beam of sort of golden, warm light just shoot out of my chest. And it scared the bejesus out of this being, who then started just hightailing out of my room. And I was like, come back, kind of like that. So then it went away, and I basically said, well, I guess if that ever happen again, I'll know what to do. So fast forward then from that, sorry for the digression, about a year later, and a very similar being entered my room. Now, this being, though, was different. It wasn't trying to sort of suck the life force out of me like the other one had been trying to do. And so it was coming even a bit more like carefully or haltingly into the room. So I asked it, hey, who are you? And it said, well, you may recognize my kind. And one of, it used the word my kind. One of the others of my kind came here, and you have quite the reputation now. And it told us that if you need to move on, go to this guy, being me, being an 8-year-old. And it said to me, I was told that you could help me out. And I said, what do you have in mind? He said, well, could you put me to work? And I said, actually, yes. Well, let's see. And I told it basically that I had a need of a bouncer. And I thought, well, you're kind of very scary. So maybe you could just stand by the door. Could you make sure that only one spirit entered this room at a time? And could you make sure that they actually wanted to move along and that they were ready and they weren't coming with bad intentions? And also, if possible, could you keep the room free and clear when I'm sleeping? Is that any of that possible? I said, absolutely. So I said, okay, you got a deal. Let's do this thing. There you go. And also, maybe could you not scare, if possible, could you not like scare me or any of the other people in the house? And it said, oh yeah, I can be pretty invisible. I said, okay, thank you. So that was that. And the only time I figured, actually, even at the time, I was hoping, I just hope that that's in my imagination, something like that. That would be maybe better. And nobody else in the house ever saw this being. Often I did when I would walk in and out of my door. I would kind of feel this presence right next to me. The only other person who mentioned anything about this to me is my now deceased friend, John, who had slept over several times in the bedroom. And one night, I hope I'm not. I don't think there's anybody else. I don't want to take credit away from anyone else for being perceptive. I think it's just John. One night at the sleepover, he woke me up. He like panicked. He was like grabbing my arm. It's like, Tom, there's a ghost in the room. Oh yeah, it's like, oh yeah. Sorry about that, John. That sometimes happens here. Are you okay? It's like, yeah, I guess I'm okay now that you're awake. As could you describe this one? Because I was really groggy. He said, oh yeah, it's like pitch black and standing by your door. It's like, oh, don't worry, John. I know he's like atrociously scary, and he kind of feels very bad, but he's actually working for us. So we're right. Can you trust me on this? He said, yeah, absolutely. So okay, I know, but let's try to get back to sleep. So we did. And so that's the only other person who mentioned that. Maybe interestingly, John also Scorpio sun like me, only born I think 3 days after or something like that. So anyways, there we were. Fast forward a few years, and really, like a lot of the haunting stuff, gradually through my teen years had subsided. I even asked for help at a certain point as a younger teenager to have those sort of faculties shut down because I just wanted to have sort of a normal life, and whatever my psychic friend had me do seemed to work because I got to be dumb as a stone for a few years, and that was really nice in that capacity. So then, fast forward to about age 17, and then I had sleep paralysis before. I'd never had any being, like, I haven't had experience of like a succubus or beings like that at all in any kind of paralysis as a teen. Excuse me. So then one morning, I'm 17. I think it was summer, early summer break, before after junior year, before the senior year, sometime maybe midsummer. I had just decided that I was going to actually commit myself to a meditation path. Do a few hours a day. Of doing so, I 1 second. Okay, now we're good. So I had just committed to doing a spiritual path a few hours a day. This has some import. It's a bit of a setup. So then I woke up with sleep paralysis, and I saw the Edwardian lady, clear as day, walking toward me from my closet door, which was maybe about 6 feet away from where my bed was, and I was in paralysis on my side like this. And, with that stern face, not looking at me, which is even scarier. And then she walks and she's standing right behind where my head is resting on my pillow. And I was just like, I'm not going to let them scare me. So I try to use all my might and my willpower to turn my body like that. And that was so much energy expenditure in doing that I promptly fell asleep. So that was one thing. I thought, oh, that's probably my imagination. Then the next morning, the same thing happened, except it was with the Mexican guy with the garish sweater. And he was, easier because he had a nicer, friendlier face. And he walked by, and this time I think I was a little bit prepared. I was able to turn all the way around and I didn't conk out into sleep. I kept my eyes into his and he was telepathic with me, and which was nice. And he basically said, it's been a really a pleasure being here in the room with you and really helping you out. I think our job is done. And he mentioned the Edwardian lady, didn't use that as her name. He said, yeah, don't mind her. That's just the way her face is because she was way too serious in life. But she's actually really nice and really caring. And she really, I know she kind of scared you. And I said, yeah, that's true. And he said, and I said, well, nice having you here too. And, he faded back and disappeared into the wall behind me. And then I, got out of it and I got up and did my thing. Uh, so at 2, I was still thinking like, yeah, it could be, just my imagination. Day 3 came, different story altogether. On day 3, I woke up. I was in a very similar state to the previous mornings, except there was no sleep paralysis going on. And instead of being by the closet door, there was the being by my door to the room, the sort of demon-like, pitch black being. Only this time, only half of his body, his right half, was pitch black. His left side had a human face with features, all sorts of other stuff. Even body wasn't pitch black. It was kind of like, split evenly down the middle. And on the human side, there was a single tear falling out of the eye. And he communicated to me, you know, it was, thank you so much for the job. I'm going to go incarnate as a human now. And I said, well, okay. And he said, well, don't worry, you won't need me anymore as a bouncer, because since you decided to, turn your room into a monastery, there's a completely different level of protection that's come in. In fact, you won't have to worry about anything in your entire house where you're doing your spiritual practices, because that'll be very, very safe space. And I said, okay, well, thank you. And it was actually a very emotional moment. So I'll say his, I don't know what sex or gender yet, but his emotions just were completely palpable. And I still remember that morning. I still remember my heart being basically flooded with joy and flooded with tears came down my eyes as we looked at each other. And he also, like the other 2 before, just, faded back across some kind of veil. And immediately after that happened, it was almost a little bit cinematic. Immediately after he passed away like that, such a beam of light entered the window and just filled the room up with just the almost angelic lighting. And then I, got up and did my thing. So that was, that would have been the year 2001. That was a beautiful series of experiences that I still remember to this day. Thank you very much. I'll be back with other videos, more on, and also some meditation instructional videos and all that sort of thing.